Picture this. You're at a basketball game. The crowd is roaring, the home team is going ham, everything feels great. But then you glance at the scoreboard, and it says the home team is losing badly. Look closer though, and you realize it isn't tracking points, it's tracking nacho sales. Home fans have bought 1,000 nachos, away fans only 100. On the nacho deficit scoreboard, the home team is losing. But what do nachos have to do with anything? Should that even matter? The home crowd got the nachos they wanted. The vendors made money. Even the away fans' nacho money flows right back into the home stadium. Everybody's happy, except the politicians who can't stop staring at the scoreboard, salivating. That's the trade deficit, a stat that looks alarming until you realize it doesn't tell you who's really winning. First, what is the trade deficit? It's the difference between what we, the United States, sell to other countries, our exports, and what we buy from them, our imports. Exports minus imports. When imports are bigger, we get a deficit. In 2024, the US exported about $3.2 trillion worth of goods and services, but imported about $4.1 trillion. That's a deficit of just over $900 billion. Maybe that sounds frightening, but the reality is less scary than what the news might have you believe. Here's something people forget. For the most part, countries don't really trade with each other. People do. Businesses do. Sure, governments sometimes buy or sell things directly. Think oil contracts or military deals. But the vast majority of trade is millions of people and businesses making choices they believe will leave them better off. When we say the US imports cars from Japan, it's not Uncle Sam shaking hands with Tokyo. It's Ford, Toyota, and millions of individual buyers and sellers making voluntary deals. That matters because it shifts the question. Should the government panic about the sum total of these individual choices, or should it trust people to know what's best for themselves? A trade at its core is simple. It's voluntary exchange. Both sides agree because they expect to be better off. You buy a hot dog because you value the hot dog more than the money. The stadium takes your money because they value the cash more than they want to keep the hot dog. Win-win. International trade is the same. If an American buys a Korean phone, it's because they think they're better off, and the seller agrees. That's mutual benefit, not national defeat. Think about going to watch your favorite team play. Your personal trade deficit with the stadium is enormous. You buy tickets, hot dogs, and jerseys every season, but the stadium never buys anything from you. By trade deficit logic, you're losing to the stadium. But are you worse off for going to see your favorite team play? Of course not. You're better off because you got what you wanted and you valued it more than the money. So why do politicians freak out about the red number? Critics say a big trade deficit means lost jobs, especially in manufacturing, dependency on foreign countries for essential goods, losing the game to rivals like China, and even living beyond our means, like we're maxing out a credit card we can't pay off. You'll hear claims that the deficit is proof America is weak, hollowed out, or being bought up by foreigners. That kind of rhetoric sells, but does it hold up? Here's the part deficit hawks ignore. Every dollar that leaves almost always comes back. When you buy a Japanese car, Toyota doesn't stuff those dollars in a mattress. They invest them in the US, building factories in Kentucky, buying stocks, or lending to the government. That's what economists call a capital surplus, and it's huge. In fact, foreigners own trillions in US assets, but Americans also own tens of trillions abroad. And here's the kicker. Americans actually earn more every year from our investments overseas than we pay out on theirs here. So the trade deficit isn't a leak, it's a loop. Imports go out, investment flows back in, and the economy grows. And sure, some worry this makes us dependent on foreign countries, but such dependence runs both ways. Other countries rely on American tech, agriculture, and finance. Cutting ourselves off wouldn't make us stronger, it would make us more fragile. And this concern isn't new. In the 1980s, the US ran big trade deficits with Japan. Commentators warned of an economic Pearl Harbor. Japan even bought Rockefeller Center. Congressmen smashed Japanese electronics on the Capitol steps. People panicked, they're taking over. And then Japan hit a decades-long slump. The US kept booming, leading the world in tech, innovation, and wealth. Those Rockefeller Center shares, Japan sold them at a loss. And it goes further back. In the 1800s, when America was industrializing, we ran trade deficits nearly every year. We imported goods and capital from Europe to build our railroads and factories. Far from hurting us, those deficits helped the US become an economic powerhouse. So the historical record is clear. Watching the deficit number climb hasn't stopped America from getting richer. What about jobs? Don't deficits export them? Here's what the data shows. Trade deficits actually rise during booms and shrink during recessions. In the 1990s, the US had record high trade deficits and record low unemployment. And in 2009, the deficit shrank, but unemployment soared. In other words, a smaller deficit doesn't mean more jobs. Usually, it means the economy is in trouble and Americans are too poor to import as much. And yes, some industries face tough competition. That's real, and those communities matter. But that's not the same thing as saying a big red number on the scoreboard necessarily equals job losses. So if it's not doom and gloom, what does the trade deficit actually mean for us? Lower cost essentials. Imports mean American families pay less for food, clothes, cars, and electronics. More choice. From French wine to Korean smartphones, consumers win when they're not locked into buying only local. Capital investment. The dollars that flow back in fund new businesses, jobs, and even foreign-owned factories here in the US. In fact, nearly 8 million Americans work for US affiliates of foreign companies. That's the trade deficit coming home to employ people and confidence. The very fact that foreigners are eager to invest here shows they trust the US economy. Investors vote with their wallets, and they keep betting on America. As economist Milton Friedman reminded us, the gain from foreign trade is what we import. What we export is the cost of getting those imports. So if you're getting cars, electronics, and clothing for pieces of green paper, that's a pretty good deal. The real danger isn't the trade deficit. It's bad policies made in the name of fixing it. In the 1930s, Congress tried to shrink trade imbalances with the Smoot-Hawley tariff. It sparked a trade war and helped collapse global trade during the Great Depression. More recently, tariffs in 2018 were supposed to cut the deficit. Instead, the deficit hit record highs, and American consumers paid billions more in higher prices for nachos and everything else. So, does the trade deficit matter? Not in the way people think. It's not the real score of the game any more than nacho sales at a stadium. Ultimately, the real scoreboard is wealth, jobs, innovation, and living standards. And on that count, America is still winning. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and check out FEE.org for more content that demystifies economics. And stick around for more FEE Explains, where we take on the myths of modern economics, one misleading scoreboard at a time.